One of the easiest ways to hand tint a photograph would be to use a fill layer. Now, before I add a fill layer, I want to select the area that I want to fill. So underneath the regular lasso tool, we have a polygonal lasso tool. So I clicked and held down on that lasso tool in order to get these other tools to fly out. And then I'm going to tap the Cap Locks key so that I know exactly where I'm selecting. And I'm just going to select the rectangle here because I want to colorize this. So we can move around fairly quickly. When I get to the point where I just want to draw a straight line between my starting point and my finishing point, all I need to do is double click and Photoshop will close that selection. So I have this first area selected, and then I'll choose Layer, and then New Fill Layer, and Solid Color. But before I click OK, I want to do two things. First, I want to name it, so I'll call it green, but I'm going to take off my Cap Locks key, and then I'm going to change the mode from normal down to color. Now, I know we haven't talked about blend modes, but if I don't change the blend mode here, I'm just going to get solid green paint over this. What I want is a color wash, so I have to change the blend mode to color. Click OK, and I'll get the color picker. Let's move that out of the way. And now we can select a green color here, and then we can decide exactly how much saturation and brightness we want. If I want it subtle, I can go ahead and just move up a ways. As soon as I like the color that I'm getting, I'll click OK. But now I want to also fill in these regions here. So let's zoom in. I'll use Command plus or Control plus in order to zoom in. And then again, if I want to use the precise cursors, I can tap the Cap Locks key, or we can leave that off because I also know that the very tip of that black arrow, that is the hot spot. So I'm just going to click once in each corner here in order to select this. To close the selection, I can either double click or I can position my cursor near where I first clicked. You can see the cursor changes. It gets that little 0, so that will close the selection. Now, in order to add to this selection, I will hold down the Shift key while I'm clicking. You can see I have the little plus icon there. That tells me that I'm adding to my selection. And I'll just do one more right up here. I don't think we can see really that last one, so just these three, will add these to it. All right, and now in order to add those with the same color, all I need to do is I need to fill this area with white, because if we look at my layers panel, what happened when I added the fill layer was that Photoshop automatically created a mask for me based on that selection. Now I do need to select the mask icon in my layers panel in order to activate it, and then I'll choose Edit and then Fill, and we'll fill this with white. I'll click OK, and once it's filled with white, remember I'm filling the mask with white. White will reveal whatever's on that layer. In this case, it's a fill layer. If I wanted to change the color of the fill layer, I could double click on the icon in the layers panel, and that would bring up the color picker. So if I wanted to make this more of a yellow color, we can go ahead and click and just drag down to select our other color. Click OK. One of the questions you might be asking is, why didn't it just affect what was inside the selection? Why did this area get changed as well? Well, you can only have one color for a solid fill layer, so it really doesn't matter what's selected when you're changing the color. You're changing the color for the entire layer. Now we can go ahead and deselect that by using Command D or Control D on Windows. And if we prefer to hand paint in a more free-form way, we can do that as well. I can tap the B key in order to select my paintbrush. And now we need to make sure on the layers panel that I've got my mask selected. Now my brush is a little bit large, so I'm going to use the left bracket to get a smaller brush. And I want to paint at maybe just 20% or so I'll tap the 2 key to give me 20%. And now I need to check what is my foreground color. It's black right now. I need to exchange those, so I'll tap the X key so that white is my foreground color. And then I can paint over this area, these little bushes right here. And if I paint multiple times, I'm going to be slowly building up more and more green. So here I didn't make this intricate selection. Instead, I'm simply painting in the mask to reveal green in those areas. Another way that we could add a different color would be to add another fill layer. So I'll zoom out using Command 0. That's going to fit in window. And I want to add a little bit of blue to the sky, but I don't want to select the sky first. So what I'll do instead is I'll choose Layer and then New Fill Layer and Solid Color, or we could select this from the bottom of the Layers panel using our Adjustment panel icon. Not only do we have adjustments here, we also have the Solid Color Fill Layer, Gradient Fill, and Pattern Fill that we can choose from. So I'll choose the Solid Color, but if I select it from here, it's not going to give me the option to change the color mode of the layer unless I hold down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows and then select the menu. Now when I choose Solid Color, we can see that it brings up the new layer dialog. I'll change the blend mode right here to color. Click OK. Then I get the color picker, and now I'm going to select a blue color. Now, that's a little bit too saturated, so let's just bring that down so that it's not as saturated, and I'll click OK. So what it did is it added this blue fill over the entire image, including over that green image, which is not what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert the color fill mask. So I'll select the mask on the Layers panel, and then down on the Properties panel, I can click to invert it. So now I'm hiding that blue. Well, because it's hidden from everywhere, all I need to do is grab my paintbrush. So if you don't have your brush, tap the B key. Use the right bracket key in order to get a larger brush. I'm painting with just 20% opacity, so I'll just paint right across the sky. And if I want to add more blue, I can continue painting in order to just slowly build up the blue in the sky area. You can toggle that on and off. That's before and that's after. And another shortcut, if I want to toggle off all of the layers except for a single layer, I can hold down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows and click on the eye icon. So if I want to turn off all the fill layers and just see the black and white version, I can do that. And then I keep holding down the Option or the Alt key and click the eye icon again in order to toggle on all of my other layers. So whether you make a selection first and then add your fill layer, or if you add a fill layer, invert the mask, and then paint in the color wherever you want, it's really up to you. Either way, you now know a quick and easy way to create a hand-painted image in Photoshop.